Lyra Valen walked through the grand corridors of the Valen estate with her head held high, even though her heart was heavy. The estate, with its polished metal walls and soft glowing lights, had always been her home, a place of comfort and privilege. But today it felt like a gilded cage. Her family's pride, their social status in the human colony of Iridian 7, had always been her shield, until she had spoken out. The Colony Council, composed of the most powerful families, had summoned her earlier that week. They were angry that Lyra had exposed a flaw in the new city defense system. It was a minor flaw, one that could easily have been fixed, but her courage in pointing it out publicly embarrassed some influential people. They called it insubordination and dangerous arrogance, and now, as she entered the council chamber, she knew her punishment awaited. Lyra's eyes scanned the room. The council members sat stiffly, their expressions cold, faces lit by the soft glow of holographic screens displaying colony statistics. She expected words, perhaps fines or temporary restrictions on her work. But what came next surprised her. "Lyra Valen," said Chairman Orvin, his voice calm but filled with authority, "your actions have shown a blatant disregard for the colony's hierarchy. To remind you of your place, you will be married to a servant of the colony." The words hit her like a shockwave. Lyra's first reaction was disbelief. A servant? Marry one? The council members exchanged approving nods as if the punishment were clever and fitting. Lyra opened her mouth to protest, but the chairman raised a hand. "This is final," he said. "The marriage will be arranged immediately. You are to take Kieran Tal, a maintenance technician of the colony, as your spouse. He is of low social rank, and this union will remind you of humility." Humility. The word stung. Lyra had always believed in justice and intelligence over social standing. Yet now she was to be humiliated in front of the entire colony. When she was led to the quarters where Kieran awaited, she tried to steel herself. Kieran was a young man, plain in appearance, with calloused hands from years of labor. He looked up at her with calm, quiet eyes. There was no fear, no anger, only curiosity. "You are Lyra Valen," he said simply. "And you are Kieran Tal," she replied, her voice stiff. She had expected arrogance, resentment, or embarrassment, but Kieran's calmness unnerved her. The first days were tense. Lyra treated him as she thought a noble should treat a servant, with distance and authority. Kieran, in turn, accepted his new position with surprising patience. He did not grovel, nor did he complain. He simply worked silently, observing, learning. Lyra quickly discovered that Kieran was intelligent. Perhaps it was his curiosity, or the way he asked precise questions about colony technology, but he had a mind that could match hers. Yet he never challenged her openly. Instead, he waited, watched, and acted when necessary. One morning, the colony announced that a major reactor powering the city's dome had begun malfunctioning. It was a critical situation. If the reactor failed, the dome could collapse and thousands of lives would be at risk. Lyra's skills as an engineer were in demand. She turned to Kieran, thinking to assign him simple support tasks. To her surprise, he spoke up. "I've studied the schematics of this reactor," he said. "I believe the fault lies deeper than surface damage. We need to check the secondary conduits below the surface." Lyra frowned. "That area has been abandoned for decades. No one goes there. It's considered dangerous." "Sometimes the dangerous places hide the solutions," Kieran replied calmly. Her curiosity outweighed her pride. Together they descended into the dim, narrow corridors beneath the reactor dome. Dust hung in the air, and the hum of the reactor above vibrated through the walls. Lyra's heart raced, not just from fear, but from the thrill of discovery. As they reached the secondary conduits, Kieran's knowledge became astonishingly clear. He manipulated panels and bypassed outdated locks with ease. Lyra had seen technicians struggle for hours, yet he moved like he belonged there. "This technology, it's older than the colony," Lyra whispered. "How do you know so much about it?" Kieran paused. "I've studied it quietly. Many ignore what's beneath their feet, thinking only the surface matters, but understanding the past helps protect the future." Lyra felt a mix of admiration and unease. Here was a servant, someone society deemed lowly, yet he possessed skills and insight beyond the colony's elite engineers. Her assumptions were crumbling. They reached the heart of the reactor's problem, a hidden alien device embedded deep in the conduits. The device emitted a faint rhythmic pulse of energy, unlike anything Lyra had seen. She realized with awe that Kieran's knowledge was not just skill. He understood something ancient, something powerful. Suddenly, the device sparked violently. Alarms rang through the corridors and the lights flickered. Lyra and Kieran struggled to stabilize it, working in perfect sync. Every move required trust, every decision demanded cooperation. When the device finally calmed, the two stood in silence. Their eyes met, and Lyra saw Kieran not as a servant but as a partner, perhaps even a friend. She had misjudged him entirely. The council, unaware of what had happened below, assumed the young couple was merely adjusting to their new life. No one realized that in the darkness beneath the city, Lyra and Kieran had discovered not only a technological secret, but also a shared respect that defied societal expectations. That night, as they returned to the quarters, Lyra could not sleep. She thought about Kieran, his quiet confidence, his intelligence, and the courage it took to venture where others feared. For the first time, she questioned the council's judgment, not just of her, but of the entire colony. The next morning, Lyra found a small note slipped under her door. It read, "We do not choose who we are born to be. We can choose what we become." Lyra smiled despite herself. Perhaps this marriage meant as punishment was instead a lesson. Perhaps it was the beginning of something unexpected. Days passed, and the two continued working together, both in the reactor and in daily life. The colony still saw a noble forced to live with a servant, but Lyra and Kieran had begun to understand that their combined abilities could achieve far more than either could alone. One evening, while examining the alien device again, Kieran noticed a subtle shift in its energy. He looked at Lyra, eyes wide. "It's reacting to us," he said. "Something is changing. I don't know what it is, but I think we are part of it now." Before Lyra could respond, the device pulsed more strongly, enveloping them in a brilliant, gentle light. The air around them hummed with energy, filling their minds with strange, vivid images, star maps, alien schematics, and visions of places far beyond the colony. Lyra's heart pounded. "Kieran, what's happening?" He grasped her hand firmly. "I don't know. But whatever it is, we face it together." As the light faded, Lyra felt a surge of awareness. She could sense the reactor's systems in a way she never had before. Kieran's abilities mirrored hers. Together they were connected to the alien device, linked in ways neither fully understood. And in that moment, Lyra realized something profound. The council had punished her, thinking to humiliate her. But in truth, they had set her on a path that could change everything. For herself, for Kieran, and for the entire colony. The story was only beginning. The morning sun barely touched the top of Iridian 7's city dome when Lyra Valen awoke with a strange sense of clarity. The memory of the alien device's light still shimmered behind her closed eyelids. She felt different, connected. The air itself seemed alive with possibilities. Kieran, already awake, stood by the window scanning the horizon. His posture was calm, but his eyes reflected the same wonder she felt. "We need to test it," he said softly, turning toward her. "We need to understand what the device did to us." Lyra nodded. They had spent days working in the reactor, fixing faults that previously had stumped entire teams of engineers. Now, with the alien device's influence, their minds operated in tandem. Lyra could sense Kieran's thoughts almost instantly, and he could feel her insights before she spoke them. Their first experiment was simple, stabilizing the city's energy grid. Within minutes, they had identified inefficiencies that had gone unnoticed for years. Lyra marveled at how naturally it all came together. It was as if the city itself responded to their combined presence. The colony's leaders, however, remained unaware of the true nature of Lyra and Kieran's abilities. To them, the union of noble and servant remained a scandalous joke. Yet the pair knew that the council had underestimated the most important thing humans possessed: ingenuity, courage, and cooperation. One afternoon, as Lyra and Kieran examined another section of the alien device hidden beneath the city, a new challenge appeared. The device pulsed erratically, and strange holographic patterns filled the chamber. Symbols appeared, some human, some alien, and others entirely unrecognizable. "It's trying to communicate," Kieran said, tracing the holograms with his hand. "Or maybe it's showing us what it wants us to do." Lyra frowned. "What does it want?" Before Kieran could answer, the chamber walls vibrated and a soft melodic hum filled the space. The energy from the device spread through them like a current, and suddenly, Lyra understood. The device was a repository of knowledge built by a long-extinct alien civilization. Its purpose was to teach, to enhance, to guide civilizations that could rise above fear and prejudice. Lyra glanced at Kieran, excitement and determination mingling in her eyes. "We can use this. We can help the colony, not just survive, but thrive." Kieran nodded. "We need to act carefully. If the Council discovers us before we understand the full power of this knowledge, they might try to stop us, or control it for themselves." Over the next week, the duo worked tirelessly. They stabilized critical infrastructure, improved agricultural systems within the dome, and repaired old communication networks. Slowly, the colony began to notice subtle improvements. Light stayed brighter, water flowed more efficiently, and messages across the city traveled faster. But rumors began to spread. Citizens whispered about Lyra and Kieran, the unusual couple who seemed to have answers for every problem. Some were curious. Others were suspicious. The council, anxious and prideful, demanded explanations, yet the pair provided none. They simply continued their work. One evening, as the colony's twin moons rose above the dome, Lyra and Kieran faced their greatest challenge yet. A section of the city's dome, weakened by years of neglect, threatened to collapse. Engineers had warned it could fail within hours, and evacuation would take too long. "This is it," Lyra said, standing beside Kieran. "If we can't fix it, thousands could be in danger." Kieran placed a hand on her shoulder. "We can do this together." Using the knowledge from the alien device, they calculated the stress points of the dome, manipulated the energy systems, and reinforced the structure in a matter of minutes. Citizens watched from below as the lights of the city pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. And then the danger passed. The dome stabilized. A collective sigh of relief spread through the colony. The council had no choice but to acknowledge their success. Yet even as they praised Lyra and Kieran, the two remained humble. They did not claim heroism. Instead, they emphasized cooperation, ingenuity, and the importance of using knowledge wisely. As the days went on, Lyra realized that something deeper had changed between them. What had begun as a punishment had grown into a partnership built on respect, trust, and admiration. Kieran was no longer a servant, and she was no longer a noble in the old sense. Together, they were something new, a force capable of shaping the colony's future. One morning, while exploring the alien device again, Kieran discovered a hidden interface that activated a star map. It revealed distant planets, some within reach of human travel. "They left this for someone like us," Kieran whispered, tracing the map. "They wanted a civilization that could rise above fear, above prejudice, to explore, to learn, to grow." Lyra felt a thrill of excitement. "Then we have a choice. We can stay here and rebuild, or we can reach beyond, take the knowledge to new worlds." Before Kieran could respond, the city alarm blared. A sudden solar storm threatened the colony's energy shields. Time was short. The couple rushed to the control center, combining their abilities. Within minutes, the shields were reinforced, protecting the city from catastrophic damage. The citizens cheered, finally seeing the true value of human skill and determination. That evening, as the colony celebrated their survival, Lyra and Kieran stood together on a balcony overlooking the dome. The city glimmered below them, a network of lights and life. "Do you ever think," Lyra began, "that if we had never been forced together, none of this would have happened?" Kieran smiled. "Perhaps. But sometimes punishment hides opportunity. Sometimes what others see as weakness becomes the greatest strength." Lyra looked at him, realizing the truth in his words. The council had tried to humiliate her, to remind her of her place. Instead, it had given her a partner, someone who matched her in intelligence, courage, and vision. Together, they had surpassed every expectation. Over the following weeks, Lyra and Kieran worked with the citizens, sharing knowledge and training new engineers, technicians, and leaders. The colony flourished in ways that had seemed impossible. Humans were not just surviving, they were thriving. Their ingenuity, cooperation, and courage became a model for other colonies across the stars. The council, once proud and controlling, learned humility. They realized that social rank meant nothing compared to skill, heart, and the will to act. Lyra and Kieran, once seen as a scandalous pair, became symbols of human potential. One night, under the twin moons, Kieran activated the star map again. "The galaxy is vast," he said. "There is so much to explore, so much to learn." Lyra took his hand, her eyes shining. "Then let's go. Together." And so the unlikely pair, a noble and a servant united by circumstance, prepared to leave the colony behind. They had faced punishment, prejudice, and doubt, yet they had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready to shape the future. The people of Iridian 7 watched them depart, inspired and hopeful. Humans had proved once again that courage, intelligence, and cooperation could overcome any obstacle. The story of Lyra and Kieran was no longer one of punishment, it was one of triumph, a testament to the unexpected strength of humanity. And somewhere, deep within the alien device, a faint pulse of energy seemed to acknowledge their achievement, as if the creators had known all along that humans could rise above fear, above prejudice, and shine. For Lyra and Kieran, the stars were only the beginning.